Let's see one more set of examples about call by value. And for this set of example, we assume the following class about the points, which you have been very familiar with. So we got the private attributes x and y, and also we got the constructor, which will simply initialize the x and y coordinates. And we got get x, get y, and also move vertically, so which will only modify the y coordinates value by the parameter over here. Notice I'm using parameter as opposed to arguments. Why? Okay, refer to my earlier video. And also move horizontally by modifying the parameter x over here, right? By modifying the attribute x by incrementing it by the parameter x, right? That's what I meant. All right, so this the next few slides, you will see one example, second example, and third example. We got 3 examples over here. I'll let you study the slides, but I'm definitely going to go over that with you, but using my iPad. Okay, that's what I will do. And let me point to you before I do the visual exercise together with you. The source code made available to you this week. So that's an example call by value reference. So this part I actually gave you the code, so you can play with it by using debugger, step into, step over, and etc. If you see that, you will see the example under the default package. You got a point, you got a util, you got the test call by value. You got 3 JUnit test cases, which I'm gonna illustrate to you. Right? I'll leave that to you to do the step into, breakpoint, step over, and etc. Okay? I'm not gonna spend the time this week. We have done that so many times, but I will definitely do it when it's so necessary. All right, let's now talk about the 3 examples one by one. The first one is going to focus on primitive parameter, okay? And this example is going to be slightly different focus than the circle example that we did. Remember, we did set radius, either set radius by passing a reference type arguments versus passing a primitive type arguments. That's what we did earlier. And we try to see what's the effects about changing some objects over here, right? That's what we did. But this time, we're going to focus more specifically about whenever you're trying to pass some arguments I over here, or later, maybe some P, right? P here is reference type, and I here is actually primitive type. Are we actually able to modify the argument itself from the call list method? That's really a critical question we're asking. Okay, but I'm gonna illustrate that to you and also write down some notes for your information. But I just want to mention that verbally. So basically, we want to see if the argument type is actually either primitive versus reference type. Are we able to actually modify the reference type or the primitive type f value by using the call list method? Okay, let's take a look. And number 1, example number 1. So we are basically focusing on just this method over here, just this one. It's an easy one. Okay, let's see what it is trying to do. This might be something you tried to do earlier in your Java code, but Eclipse will actually give you some warning if you do so. What we're doing is we say we got parameter j, which is integer primitive type, and then we are trying to say the parameter j is assigned to itself plus 1. We are trying to increment parameter j, right? That's what we are doing. But if you already understood what call by value is doing, you're only modifying the copy into the value copy that's really stored into J. That's only the only thing you're modifying. You're not really modifying the original value of the arguments. So what do I mean? Let's visualize it. Okay. Let's now try to trace line by line. And here we're just creating a utility object. For that one, I don't need to visualize because the util class over here does not contain any attributes, just intentionally to make things easy. Okay, and we got some integer I. Okay, let's just visualize it quickly. That one's easy. So I is value 10. Okay, it's really important to see that this is one copy of the value 10. And of course, if you try assert true, I is equal to 10. Trivial. It should be passing. Okay, this one is easy. And let's now do some method call, which is really crucial for you to see. So let's say we try to do this method call here. We say u.reassign integer, which is calling this method over here, right? Again, this I over here is the arguments or the parameter. Arguments, right? This is the arguments, whereas the j over here is the parameter, right? Notice the difference. Okay? How do you tell the difference? Refer to the earlier video. Okay, parameter versus arguments. And according to call by value, right? So now I'm just going to draw some line over here. So if we try to do call by value, what is going to happen? Well, what's going to happen is, let me use purple here to emphasize, the parameter is going to be assigned a value of arguments, right? So that means we're going to execute j is assigned to I. J is going to be some separate primitive variable over here, variable. And then it's going to be j is going to copy the value from I, which will be a separate copy 10. Right? So far so good. And then when we try to step into the method execution over here, what's going to happen? We're going to say j is going to be assigned to itself plus 1. Itself plus 1 is going to be 11. So you're simply just overriding this value over here just by itself plus 1. So it's going to be changed from 10 into 11. Have you noticed one thing? We pass I over here, which caused the creation of a separate copy of j, 10 initially. So when you try to modify the parameter over here, it will not impact the original I, the arguments. That's so important, right? So let me write it down. So given that a copy of argument I, right? That's arguments I here. Argument I is stored in J. When we execute whatever that's in the body of the method, which is J is assigned to J plus 1. J is assigned to J plus 1. No change will be done to arguments I. It is so important to actually see this point. That's why I'm writing that up explicitly. A copy of argument I is stored in J. So when we try to execute, J is assigned to J plus 1. No change will be done to argument I. So this one here remains to be its value. That's actually passed into the method. So it remains to be 10. So that's why when you say assert true, it's going to be 10 rather than 11. Okay, rather than 11. Okay, 11 has been changed, but it's only changing this particular separate copy for the parameter. All right, hopefully that makes sense to you. That's about the first example.